Hey guys, I hope you are having a wonderful Monday so far. And today we're going to be talking about another witch, of course. And if you don't already know, this is Witch History and Makeup. My name is Brandy, also known as Bone Throwing. And so I do these videos twice a week about a witch in history. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. It's got some true crime element to it. So if that interests you, definitely hit that subscribe button. I'll just be like putting makeup on as I'm talking about this certain witch. I'll list below what I use, but I'm not going to really tell you what I'm doing until, because we're talking about witches, is what we're doing. We're talking about witches, and it's going to be fun, and I promise you guys are going to love it. So, yes, let's get to it. So, the witch that we are doing today is actually fairly interesting because she did a lot of firsts as a woman. She was a huge staple in the women's suffrage movement, but yet she's not mentioned in any books or anything, and this is for a reason. And of course, I'm going to tell you guys the reason as we go along. But we're talking about Victoria Woodhull today. Okay, she's actually born Victoria Claflin on September 23rd of 1838 in Ohio. So we've kind of moved ahead a few centuries here, and we're back in the United States because I know the first one I did was on the Salem witch trials. She was born very, very illiterate, very poor. Her mom was a fortune teller. Her dad was like a scammer guy that just like took advantage of people, basically ran any kind of scam you could possibly think of. That's what her dad would do. And then so she did go to school for a little while. She went to school, and when she was 8, she went to school, to elementary school, like most of us are not even, we've already been in school by that time. So anyway, she starts school, and she only lasts for about 3 years before she decides to drop out, okay? Now, when she drops out, her father sends her and her sister, whose sister name is Tennessee, okay? Yep, like the state, Tennessee. And he sends them all across Ohio and is like, I want y'all to go tell fortunes, make money, of course, send it back to me. And, he evidently, I feel like in his mind, he thought this was a scheme, even though her mother was medium and was also a fortune teller. I feel like that, I didn't see anything bad about the mom. It was just mostly about the dad. And so the mom was trying to do what she could. Now, Victoria herself was a clairvoyant, and she was a medium. And she actually kind of does it the way I do it when I'm working with divination. She can hear the spirits of the 3 children. Like, she is one of 10 children, and so there was 3 that I guess that had died, and so she could listen to their spirits. Their spirits would talk to her, and that's how she would know things. That was her mediumship. She received visions and things like that all the time. She said that she was a healer. Victoria, for somebody to be illiterate and not very smart, let me tell you, this lady goes on to do so much for the women's suffrage movement. It's absolutely insane, okay? So anyway, we got Victoria. She's out there with her sister. They're out there, telling fortunes, and they make a small fortune while they're doing it because it's kind of like during the Civil War times, They made a small fortune doing this. And so when she turns 15, unfortunately, she meets a guy, and this guy puts on all the airs. He is a doctor. He is so well known. He is so amazing. And so, she marries the guy. She tries to do, she's trying to marry into money because she grew up poor. So she marries this doctor. The doctor turns out to be an alcoholic, morphine addicted serial affair haver, basically. He was just everything that you could not want in a person, basically, or in a man. And that's what she got. And she didn't realize this until after she got married to him. So imagine getting married at 15 years old and you got to deal with a guy that's an alcoholic cheating on you and doing morphine whenever because he's a doctor. Obviously, he can get all this stuff, you know. So how do you deal with that? Well, she has 2 children with him. She does. And one actually has special needs. And so she was a spiritual medium as well. And she's surrounded by the occult from a young age, okay, just like because of her mom and stuff. And so her family also had a side business where they made potions. And it's so funny how like poisons and potions last week were in the 1600s, and they were like, no, you cannot do that. But yet here we are in the United States in the 1800s, and we still have people that are selling poisons. You know what I mean? Like that's just kind of, I mean, I understand potions and things to help heal people, but poisons, like, come on, we need to roll past that. It's giving all of us a bad name. I also meant to tell y'all that their family business involved not only potions, but they healed the sick, of course, but they also gave massages. I don't know what that's about. I didn't see what kind of massages they are, but we can all kind of guess that for back then what kind of massages they are, because eventually Victoria is against the whole men establishment and the church and not having any rights, not being able to vote. So this kind of sparks something into her. After she has 2 children with the morphine addicted doctor, she marries another guy who was like a really top colonel in the Civil War. His name was James Blood. Okay. And they were only together for like a couple of years, but they divorced amicably. Like they weren't mad at each other or anything like that. They were actually like still friends, which this is something that I think kind of sparked in her brain. You know, why can't other women be friends with the people they're no longer with? You know, like why is that so hard? Why does everything have to be so drawn out and difficult when it comes to a woman marrying a man and then getting divorced and then looking at her like she's so terrible, but the guy is just like can have as many divorces as he wants and he's totally fine. I mean, make that shit make sense, you know? Now, because they split amicably and Victoria's sister, Tennessee, had gotten in trouble, okay, with the law. She had gotten in trouble for manslaughter. Yeah, because she was trying to heal somebody that had cancer and they passed away. Which, I mean, people still pass away from cancer now, despite even using holistic methods or even, going through chemo and things like that. They, and so they didn't say that it was her fault, but James Blood was like, look, ladies, here, I got a place in New York. If you want to leave Ohio and go to New York and kind of start fresh, you absolutely can. You can just have my place that I have up there. It's like a little apartment or something like that. So the girls pack their bags and they go to New York in 1868. Okay. And this is where all the good things start to happen. They start to open on businesses and doing things that no other women had done. Okay. But before any of that could happen, they meet a man named Vanderbilt. He's Cornelius Vanderbilt. And if you've ever never heard that name before, then you're not from the South. But when you hear the name Vanderbilt, it's kind of like, oh, okay, the Vanderbilts, like they have like mansions everywhere. You know what I mean? And so Tennessee kind of became his lover, but they also became his spiritual advisors because he did not trust medical professionals. Yeah. So they were doing stuff for him, like helping him stay well and, making sure he's not sick and stuff like that because he didn't trust doctors. He trusted the spiritual mediums over doctors, okay? I'm sorry, but I don't agree with that. I mean, maybe back then that's a little bit different because they didn't have as much knowledge about, medicine as we do now. But Lord have mercy. So when they meet Vanderbilt and they become his spiritual advisors, they also start asking him for stock tips. They become the first women to actually do stocks on the stock market. Okay. I think that's very, very awesome. Very much so. There's not a lot of people that can say that. But they were the first two women on Wall Street, basically. They did not have a house in the actual exchange. They didn't have a seat in the exchange. No woman had a seat in the exchange until 1967. Vanderbilt lends them some money after they make like $700,000 during the gold rush, which would equal like $13 million today. Yeah, they did that in 6 weeks. And so Vanderbilt backs them on making their own firm, which I think is fantastic. Their own brokerage firm, okay? And it's called Woodhull because she keeps her last name from her marriage, and Clapham from, her sister, because it's her and her sister. Now, it's not too long after they open this brokerage firm that they start getting called names. Yeah, of course, because there's always going to be somebody out there that's very, very jealous. You know what I mean? They never, like I say, they never gained a seat or anything like that, but they were calling them the lady bankers, the bewitching brokers, whatever that means, and things like that. I guess basically saying that they had bewitched Vanderbilt into thinking that, they're awesome and all this other stuff. So I don't think that's true. I just think that he just liked women, probably liked having women around. What's wrong with that? Especially for back then at that time, and they were getting something out of it. He was their backer for their brokerage firm. And of course, he was going to get something out of that, obviously, because you just don't back somebody without getting a return. And, and so it all kind of worked out that way for them for a while. So we got these sisters. They're on Wall Street. They, in less than 2 months from opening their brokerage firm, they open up their own newspaper, okay? And then Victoria Woodhull, she starts going to these women suffrage conventions, okay? And she actually meets a guy there who gets her in front of the congressional committee. And she becomes the first woman to speak in front of the congressional committee, which was a huge, 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 huge deal back then because women weren't allowed to be in with politics and things like that. And of course, whatever she said, they thought it was just, I think they did it probably for a laugh. They probably laughed at her, I'm sure, as soon as she left the room because that's just how it is. But it caught the attention of some really top women's suffrage movement leaders, like Harriet Beecher Stowe and Elizabeth Stanton. And so Elizabeth Stanton actually, I think these two females, Elizabeth and what's her face, the other one I said, I think they get upset at the fact that she has so much, that Victoria has so much success. But at first, they're really, really huge backers for her because she starts giving speeches, okay? She starts giving all these speeches all over the place, and they're selling out. Like, people are coming just to listen to her talk about women's rights. And so what does she decide to do? She decides that she wants to run for president. And yes, Victoria Woodhull is the first woman that has ever ran for presidency in this country, in the United States. I'm sorry, it was not Hillary Clinton. It was Victoria Woodhull. I'm not trying to be snarky. I'm just saying, she wasn't the first, okay? She was not the first woman. Victoria Woodhull was, okay? So Victoria, she goes and she talks about at this convention on January 11th, 1871, she stated that women had the right to vote because of the 14th and 15th Amendments, okay? basically saying if we pay taxes, why if we're paying taxes, why can't we vote? You know, type deal. And so they rejected her ideas, but this opened the door for other women to start thinking, maybe I don't have to have, 10,000 babies. Maybe I don't have to marry the person that my family wants me to marry. Maybe I don't have to stay with this guy because he's hurting me every single day and I can divorce him without, people looking at me like that, you know? I mean, that's all she's wanted to do. And she says at this convention too, and I quote, "The citizen who is taxed should also have a voice in the subject matter of taxation." Basically what I just said, saying that, if they're paying taxes, then why can't they vote? That was her whole entire platform. She's like, if I'm paying taxes, then I should be allowed to vote. And so this sparks her to go and want to go and be, the president of the United States. And so she names Frederick Douglass as her running mate. But he never acknowledges her. No, because, she's a woman, and a woman in politics, oh, mind is blown, right? And so this woman, she decides, she's like, well, I'm going to do this anyway. And she had her own newspaper, and so she could run her own, campaign. And she had a lot of really good points in her campaign, too. A lot of things that a lot of people are still trying to do today. She created the Equal Rights Party. And that is the party she ran under when she was trying to become president. Okay. Now, her whole entire stance was the women's suffrage movement, obviously. And so not only with that, she ran with a lot of other things too. She wanted regulation of monopolies. And I apologize, I have to read this off of here because I cannot remember all this. I just can't. Regulation of monopolies, nationalization of railroads, because I think then that they were like individually owned. I'm not really sure. Let's see, an 8-hour work week. Yeah, you could thank Victoria for that one. She wanted us to have an 8-hour work week, and that's what we have now, is an 8-hour work week. Am I right? I mean, most people, not like, I'm not talking about like doctors, stuff like that. It's a little bit different. All right, so then she wanted direct taxation. She also wanted to abolish the death penalty. She wanted welfare for the poor, and she wanted sex education for teens. Those all sound like things that we would want for today. And then we're talking about back in the 1800s. This is what she stood for. And I think this is amazing that this is what she's standing for, But, and so after she travels and she sells out her shows, she starts using a word that a lot of people don't like. And it's free love. Now you got to think where we're at. It's after the Civil War. Okay. And she's talking about free love, as in it doesn't matter who or what you are. You deserve love. I will love you. Everybody should love you. It's basically what she was saying. But they took it in a way that she was trying to be promiscuous. And that's not true at all. That's not the way she did it. And so Frederick Douglass, because of this, is like, no, I'm done with you. The other two ladies, because of the things she's saying about free love, saying that people should be able to marry whoever they want to marry. They should be able to have as many kids as they want to have. They should get a divorce if they need a divorce without it being like a whole entire thing. And and she wanted them to vote. She wanted them to have rights over their bodies. And for some reason, people did not like that. And I think it's the racist thing from just back then. But they all turned on her once she said that, she didn't care about color or race or, or spirituality. She didn't care about any of that. As long as you are a good person, basically, you're worthy of love, is what she was saying. When she started this free love movement, she was named Mrs. Satan, okay? Because this idea at the time was a very, very radical idea, okay? Like I say, Civil War just got done. We all know what the Civil War was about back then, and it wasn't a good thing. And so we got to think about how these people still, and how this still is today. People are still racist today. And we're talking about back in the 1800s, okay? And a cartoonist, of course, makes fun of her. But what really they don't understand is that free love was women's rights of freedom to marry who they want, have as many children as they want, and to get divorced if they want to. That's all that she asked for, you know. That's all she ever wanted. And so, what's actually kind of funny about Victoria is she's very progressive, just like a lot of our witches are. She lived with her ex-husband. I'm not sure which one. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it wasn't the doctor. I'm pretty sure it was James. And then her current husband and her lover. And she backed this up by saying, okay, let me read this. Let women issue a declaration of independence sexually and absolutely refuse to cohabitate with men until they are acknowledged as equals in everything. And the victory will be won in a single week. Yo, she ain't lying. She ain't lying. If some of these females stood up and was like, hey, I'm getting done. I'm tired of this. Like, I cannot do everything. You know what I mean? Even there are still males today that think that it's the woman's job to keep the house clean, to fold the clothes, to keep all the grocery stocked, to keep, you know, dishes washed, make sure their uniforms are ready and pressed to go to work. Yeah, you know, that's not, you know, sometimes that's just not who we are. That's just not real life. You know what I mean? And she's trying to show that. But she uses a word that I really think this is kind of what, well, there's two things that kind of put the nails in her coffin. I mean, actually, she doesn't end up getting, like, burned or anything like that. So just going to go ahead and let you know that up front. But they did say that she wanted everybody to love each other. And that was all she ever wanted. And so she said, I want to love you all promiscuously. And you gotta remember, okay, when she says this, she's not literate, okay? So I'm thinking that she associates probably sex with love, which those two can obviously go hand in hand, but it can also not go hand in hand. And I don't think they understood that. She's basically saying, I want to love you I want to love all of you. Not just for who you are, or what you stand for, or your status. You know, for more than that. That's what she was trying to say, but let me finish. It makes no difference who or what you are, old or young, black or white, pagan, Jew or Christian. I want to love you all and be loved by you all. And I mean to have your love. Yeah, that's what she says. I think it's amazing that she says that. I absolutely love it. It makes me all warm and gushy inside because those are things, like I say, that we are all still struggling with today. And she may have kind of said it in the wrong way, but hey, even I'm not that great with words. I sit here and have to look at a piece of paper. I'm just saying. I mean, I guess it's more of my memory's not that great. I don't know. Maybe you guys can figure that out. Those are a couple of the quotes that she used, you know, to back up the fact that she had a husband at home and a side piece, and her ex-husband lived in there. So, but I mean, she was living in her ex-husband's house, you know, James in New York. So anyway, let's go on ahead and talk about election day. All right, for the presidency. By the time she right before election day, she publishes a freaking article because Elizabeth Stanton starting stuff, okay, tells her that Reverend Beecher, which is Harriet Beecher Stowe's brother, he's a preacher. Yep, here comes the preacher in the situation. And tells her that he's been promiscuous and he's been cheating and he's like just not a great person. Tells Woodhull this, okay? So Woodhull writes it in her newspaper. She's like, I don't care. I'm going to tell everybody who this man is. You know, he's like, for all we know, he could have been, you know, something like that. You know, you never know. So the article that she writes and publishes in her newspaper gets her in trouble because, you know, people still have a lot of respect for, you know, preachers and things like that and think that they can do no wrong and that they are fantastic and awesome in every single way. And you know, that's not always the case. I mean, it's pretty much the case most of the time, but we have a few radicals out there, okay? And so this guy got called out, and the public, and of course, Harriet Beecher Stowe, his sister, did not like this at all and called for her to be arrested. And she's going to be arrested. I just messed that up. She is arrested basically for sending obscene materials through the mail, which, and actually for lewd behavior too, because, or no, not lewd, libel, because there was an accusation of two girls that got, or somebody, a guy that had gotten two girls drunk and seduced them. How these two, how they got wrapped up in that, I don't know if they were the two girls or what, but somehow they got sued for libel on that. But they end up, you know, they stay in jail for a month. They go in jail November 2nd. They stay in there for a month. That's during election day. Now, during this time, everybody had gotten so mad about everything that she said that there was only if she didn't show up on every single state ballot, but she did show up on some, okay? But they never counted any of them. So if anybody voted for her, we'll never know. And that kind of makes me sad, y'all. I'm not going to lie. I mean, she probably didn't win, but she does know that just by doing this, just by running for presidency, she's opening the doors for other women in the future, like old Clinton. And so, anyways, she's locked up on election day. She loses the election. She gets out of, her and her sister get out of jail. Now she's got to deal with this guy. She gets arrested like 8 times by this one guy. And it's a guy that I feel like he's a male Karen for back in the 1800s, okay? He starts a, let's see, it's called the New York Society for the Suppression of Vice Committee. I had to look it up, okay? Because I'm not that smart. And I was like, okay, I've never heard of this committee in my life. What did this committee do, you ask? Well, what they did is they supervised the morality of the public by basically arresting people who they think were like doing the wrong thing, according to them. Whether or not it was against the law, that's another situation. But this guy was like the Karen of, you know, oh my gosh, if you sneezed over there on that fruit, that you can't use that fruit now. You know, like that kind of thing is what they were about. And so he put her in jail like 8 times, but they always ended up getting out. But the whole point of them doing this and putting them in jail so many times is so they would lose money. Because every time you go to jail, what do? You got to go to court. So they go to jail and then they have to go to court, go to jail, go to court, go to jail, go to court, and court costs money. And by the end of all this, after being the first woman to run for president, the first woman to talk in front of the congressional committee, okay, all these firsts for this woman, and she has no friends when she gets out of jail. She has no money. Her women's suffrage women, people, they're no longer asking her to come and speak at their, you know, their big conventions and things like that anymore. I forgot to tell y'all this, but after her first arrest, old Beecher Stowe, the preacher's sister, she says that the girls are vile. And like, what she say? She said both sisters are regarded as lewd and indecent. Okay. And so Anthony Stanton and Matilda Gage published a comprehensive history on the women's suffrage movement and left Woodhull out completely. Completely. Which is probably why nobody knows that she was ever ran for president or anything, that she ever spoke in front of the Congressional Committee. Before she ever went to Wall Street as being the first woman, even though they didn't have a seat. Having a brokerage firm in the late 1800s in the United States, hey, you're not doing so bad for yourself, in my personal opinion. I think you're doing freaking good, And people, they get jealous of that. They thought, Harriet Beecher Stowe and Stanton thought that she was a showboater, that she liked the attention that she was getting from doing the women's suffrage thing. She loved it. She thought it was great. But at the same time, you have to be humble in these kind of situations, and I think she got a little bit too ahead of herself with the free love. She should have checked the room, because unfortunately back then it was very, 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 very racist. Way more racist now. Way more then than now. But it's sad that this kind of thing still goes on. They silence people that speak truth. And that's what they do. Their friends turn their back on them, And what are they supposed to do? So her and her sister, they flee to England. They go to England and they marry rich. Okay. So, they don't have any problems. They both get married over there. She runs a newspaper. Need to put lip liner on. She runs a newspaper and she preserved George Washington's estate, like his ancestors' estate. She would watch over it and take care of it. She became an automobile enthusiast. She donated money and services around town. She actually traveled back to the U.S. to run for presidency again. Yes, she did. In 1892. She founded an agricultural school that didn't really last very long. And she also volunteered for the Red Cross during World War I. Okay. And unfortunately, she did pass away in 1929 in England. But she was an absolutely amazing woman ahead of her time. Oh my God. I feel like the most important thing that we should take from today is that these are still issues that we have. She didn't care who you were, what you were, how you were dressed, or what your name was in the public opinion. That was something that she never cared about, and she was very, very upfront and open about that. And I have mega respect for Victoria Woodhull for standing her ground and saying everybody deserves love. Just because somebody makes a mistake, somebody's a certain color, maybe they're a different spirituality or religion than you, does not make them worthy or less worthy of love. It's basically all she was trying to say. Unfortunately, maybe if she'd been a little bit more literate with her words, using the word promiscuously made it sound like she wanted to have relations with everybody. But basically all she was trying to say is, I want to accept everybody as a whole, as all the same person. Like nobody be discriminated against, including women, of course. And it still happens today. We see it happening in Hollywood, where you got a guy and a girl playing in a movie, and they're playing the same part. They're like husband and wife, but yet the guy is getting paid at least $2, $3, $4, and $5 million more dollars than the girl is. Why they think she's worth less, I will never know. But that's the world that we live in now. And so Victoria really helped pave the way for people that felt different or were different or felt unloved, that they were deserving of love. And that's something I want you guys to know, okay? That everybody deserves love. It doesn't matter what you've done or who you are, what color, what your spirituality is, any of that. None of that matters. It's your heart. It's right here. It's what's in your heart, okay? So if you take anything from today, know that Victoria paved the golden brick road basically for us to be able to vote, be able to marry whoever we want, be able to have as many kids as we want. She paved the road for all of that. And she ran for presidency twice. So you tell me that chick isn't awesome just because she grew up in witchcraft now, and she may have used that to further herself. Hey, you can't fault somebody for doing that, you know? We all start somewhere. So I'm just saying. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I did. I love doing these. That's why I'm doing them twice a week now. So if you did like it, please subscribe if you don't mind. And I hope you guys have a glorious Monday and a glorious week. And I will see you guys on Thursday.